Today I'm going to be showing the concept graph. I think we're all mostly familiar with it, but I'll just go over it again and then I'll open the floor to feedback and questions. What is the concept graph? It's Jodio's 5-coded work that is now real, and it's also what we think is currently the best way to make sense of a lot of data and a lot of files that might be filled with a lot of random noise. So the concept graph is just our way of, well, concepts are our way of extracting the noise out of the assets, and the concept graph is just a new view into the messiness that is having hundreds of files with many data points and many unrelated topics in there. What we have right now is this concepts graph that appears when you open the concepts sidebar. It defaults to showing every single concept you have. I'm going to talk a bit about the plans for that in a bit, but you now have a network of all the concepts that Storytel extracted from the assets you uploaded. And you can see I uploaded a lot of planet-related Wikipedia pages and a couple of unrelated like development stuff like the Firebase authentication and something else around, yeah, backend tech and resource management stuff. So Storytel pulled those out and created this. We show it through this network. And the closer the points are to each other, the closer they are in meaning rated by Storytel. Like the distance between each point represents like how close they are by meaning. Um, Clicking on one of these will pull it up, both in the table and in the graph. So it's kind of like we're showing that there's a two-way basically link between these two, and everything you do in one should reflect in the other. So if I click on this dwarf planet system, it's going to pull it up here in the graph as well. You can rotate the graph with the left mouse click. You can move it around with the right mouse click. So now with the right mouse click and dragging it around, I can move it. And you can zoom in with your mouse wheel in the standard. You can also pull these. So if it gets kind of messy, you have some control over where these are. And one other thing we've introduced, actually, first let me show you that you can hide the graph for the times where you don't care about seeing all of that or you don't want to deal with all of that. You can, yeah, you can just keep it hidden and work just with a table. There's also a resizing bar here, which does the same thing. It can collapse it or it can make it really big if you just care about this, or really small if you mostly want to focus on the table. With the work that I did on the concept graph, I also introduced, thanks to Shelby, who provided the backend work for this, we have this concept details view that we didn't have before. And this is basically a more detailed view into what makes a concept and how the concept was created. So we have the name of the concept, the summary of what it is, and then we have this timeline right here, which is made up of what we call seeds internally. And seeds are made up of chunks from files. We call them sources for users because source makes a little bit more sense than chunk as language. So these seeds are basically collections that were pulled. They can be pulled from different files, but we split them up by file so that we can create this timeline based on which concepts, like which things we pulled out from which files. So in this case, we pulled out a seed called Neptune's orbital resonances from the Neptune Wikipedia, and we also pulled Homia's ring system from the Homia Wikipedia. So there's a timeline for outer solar system resonances concept. And then I can go into this first one for Neptune, and I can see exactly which sources or chunks it pulled from the Wikipedia file so that I can see if it used the right data or if I want to go deeper into what makes up that concept. There's also a section here for related assets and related concepts. I'm gonna be upfront and say we need to do a better job of linking between the assets and the concepts. So right now I'm gonna lose my place in here when I go, but you can navigate to the thing. First I will show I can open a different concept here, and it's gonna load it up in the details page. And then I can also click on one of the related assets, and it's gonna highlight it in the and open it in the assets tab. And we need to do a better job of going back to the concepts because now I've lost my position there. So that's coming. There's also the option to chat with a concept, and that's gonna put it in the prompt bar so you can chat with it right away from this page. And we also have the button to chat with a concept straight from this table here, so I can choose to chat with that concept. And just a little bit before we go into questions to talk about what's planned. Right now, there's no way to filter this view. So once you have a lot of files, you're going to have a lot of concepts being pulled out. The plan is to have some controls over how we filter. So you're going to be able to filter concepts, first of all, in the same way you would by searching, and it filters in the table. It should do the same thing in the graph. But we'll also let you show maybe just the top 20 concepts. And the way we're gonna score that is the concepts that are made up of more seeds are gonna score higher than the other ones. So if a concept has 100 seeds, it's gonna be like at the top of the list. And then you can filter just by the ones that are like the highest, the concepts with the most meaning, let's say that it has been extracted from files.
Andy,
Yeah.
I would like to propose that we spend enough time on this that everyone really, really gets what this is about and your questions are answered. Shelby, you're running the meeting. How much time do we have max to spend here? Are we okay if we spend even up to 10 minutes here?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I think Alex has some stuff to show. I don't have anything today. So
Okay. All right. Andy, there's a few things that I just want to point out based on what you're showing when you're ready. So you tell me when that is.
I'm ready. I was about to open the floor for questions and stuff, but
Okay,
it's
well,
your turn.
let's start with questions. Who's got questions or comments or observations based on what Andy's showing?
I think for me, I'm most curious, like how it's beautiful, it's exciting, but like beyond investor catnip, like how to use this graph or how it would be yeah, valuable in a workflow.
I think that's
So,
a perfect. Oh, go ahead, Andy.
well, I was gonna say I think it's missing a lot of the stuff that would make it more valuable. And I think the best thing that we can do with this is make it easier for people to zoom out and zoom into things. There were some conversations I had with Jodio about that, but basically letting you see your data from a bird's eye view. And I don't just mean like zooming out in the graph. I mean like being able to see like a higher level of which ones are more important, and then also being able to kind of pin down like, for example, clicking on one of these will only maybe pull up the concepts that are related to it so that you can have a better map of like the things and how they're interrelated that you can't see from a list. So there might be value in the graph for just exploring the relationships of things. But I think that will come with better filtering and selecting and all that stuff. I don't think it's quite there yet.
Okay, let me build on this. And Eric, I think you're asking the perfect question. Let's talk about some of the ways that some of the things that we're doing are effectively transformative in terms of how we work with knowledge and information. And this is where I wanted to spend enough time on this so that we can all really understand it well, so that we can start to really tell these stories publicly. So let's just start with what we've said before to make sure that we're on the same page. So Andy, can you click on assets? The way that the world is used to looking at information looks like this. And these files have file names, and a lot of times the file names are just noise, like they don't mean anything. They don't even make sense when you read them. And so
they're only good because Storytell generated these.
yeah, right. And so like what is a file? A file is a container, and it has things in it. And what does it have in it? It has concepts in it. So files have concepts in them. And so the first thing that we're doing is we're creating a view into data that a human can immediately understand. When I look at this, I can understand, oh, this is about the solar system and it's about all these concepts, and I can see how they're related to each other. Now, one thing about this is we can see that this Firebase auth quota exceeded error is very far from these other concepts, right? It's not as related to those other concepts. And so one of the first things that we still need to do is to be able to create the ability to, let's say I only want to look at all of my solar system data. And that is what we're calling a data view, where I could go into these assets. Why don't we try doing this real quick, Andy? Let's label these assets, the ones that are not Firebase, let's label them as whatever you want to call them, Andy. So we call those planets.
Give me 1 second. Press the wrong button. There you go.
Now we have a nice label for those. And then maybe we label these differently. Whatever you want to label those. Okay. And so now the first thing that we can somewhat do today is that we can create a filtered view, right? So let's go ahead and create a filter. And let's say that we want, you know, oh, this is a bug, right?
Yeah, I think I didn't release a fix that
Okay.
I did for this, so I'm gonna just create a proper one. Okay, that's better.
There we go. Okay. And so now we can create a filter where we can say, I just want to see my planets data. Or maybe let's just try this, Andy, so that everyone can see this. Maybe I want planets and testing, or planets or testing, right? I can start to create effectively what used to be a collection, right? With sub collections. I can do that here, but I can't yet save it as a data view. But imagine, let's just take testing out, and let's just imagine that I could just have planets. And now I can just look at both the assets and the concepts that are in this planets data view. And I can work with that. Anytime a new asset is added to this label called planets, I want to run an action, for example, would be a way. So I make this data view and I call it, my solar system, and it's got a couple labels and or whatever. And I'm like, okay, this is like my corpus, my body of knowledge that I want to work with. And I want to start to create automations around. I want to be able to talk. And so just like in linear, how there's tabs for the different views, people are going to be able to make and save persistent data views. So that's the next thing that Andy's working on. And we can talk more about that. But for now, let's go back to concepts. For now, you see everything. And so one thing that's going to make this more valuable is to be able to have those data views. Now, let's talk about something that just happened on a call yesterday that I was on. I was on a call with a group called, and I'm going to put a link to something that they said. They were showing me their slide deck. And so these people are basically like strategic consultants for enterprise. And they were talking about what the future business stack looks like and how they are working with C-level leaders to transform their businesses to be using this future stack. And what they believe is that there needs to be some sort of system, they were calling it AI super RAG, that allows for all of their information in the organization to be actionable. And they were like, this is our vision of the future of business, and Storytel fits right here. We've been looking for this software platform. Without the knowledge, leadership cannot make the best decisions.
Mhm.
And so, okay, so they were very excited about Storytel. Let's go back to what you were showing, Andy, and let's click into a concept. So click view details. And so I've got, and this concept spans multiple files, right? It spans multiple, often incompatible file types. And so this is the really big deal. If I had a CSV and I had a PDF and I had PowerPoints or whatever, but I've got one concept that spans across these files. First of all, normally I would never be able to understand how this is related across those files. But now that it lives at a layer above, I can start to work with it. And for this example, let's talk about at. And so Lisa was just telling us how much she's loving using Storytel. I think that's probably this screenshot here. I don't know if y'all saw this, but we got some really nice kudos from. And what she is doing is trying to understand how merchandise return data is affecting the customer satisfaction score. And so let's just imagine together that there's a concept that's called CSAT, and that CSAT is being impacted by specific data across returns, across customer service interactions, chats with customers, et cetera. The ability to subscribe to the concept and say, I want to let the CX team know anytime CSAT goes down by 10%. So now I've got this concept, which is my customer satisfaction, that's being driven by all this data across multiple file types, and now I can do something with it. So that's an example of the kind of opportunity that we have here. The last thing that I want to share, we were talking to, and you know how I've longed for visual story tiles forever. But one of the things I was talking to with, as well as the folks, is let's imagine this was a Zoom call and that we actually had the .mov, like the actual Zoom recording. This could be a video of the 2 minutes and 37 seconds of that Zoom call. Or, and so I see this concept that's about Q4 strategy, and I can see the specific part of just this call where that was discussed. And this gets back to one of our earliest investors, Chris Nicholson, was saying executives make decisions based on layers of reports that get, like they don't have access to the actual ground truth original data that's like powering all these reports. It's like a game of telephone. And so here we're able to start giving people visibility into the source data that's actually powering these higher level concepts. And this has never existed before. It's a brand new thing. And I just want to make sure that we all understand, what this thing is and how this thing could really revolutionize the way that structured data. So I'll stop there, but just any thoughts, questions, reactions?
I think, what comes up for me is like the whole idea of concepts and, getting alerts from unstructured data totally lands, and that landed for ops, the SVP of Paramount that we met with on Wednesday, who just got it immediately. Like, okay, corporate communications, they're worried about, sentiment around Paramount. And so they might need to get a text at 1 a.m. about something really tanking. And she just came up with, idea after idea. But I think also is to share like that we had to see, Jody and I, like, why is some of the concepts versus asset first view like doesn't land. And what occurred to me was, oh, we're talking about the solution and not the problem. Like everyone, the whole, like Jordio, you say all the time, like everyone knows their pain. So like speaking to the pain points and then how this can like work with that completely. I think where I think it's the concept graph or the knowledge graph that I still beyond like, sexy for investors. Like I don't know how to work with it yet. I think also just I've never worked with one.
Yep. I think it's great feedback. I also don't know, we were joking around on the Eng team when you buy the house that has the jacuzzi in the master bedroom and then you actually never use the jacuzzi, but you bought the house because it had that. It's this sexy view more of that, or is it something that will provide the ability for people to get new insights into their data? And I don't know the answer to that either. I can tell you that when people see a view into their data that they've never seen before, they're definitely like, holy crap, like this is intriguing.
Yeah.
One thing that happened yesterday with he was digging into a concept. So he was in the view details and he was like arguing with a P here, Andy, go into the view details. Like in the timeline, Grant was like, hey, this isn't right. And then he started reading the source and he's like, oh my gosh, it's actually true. It is right. I just learned something about my data. So I think one thing that's very true is that having this timeline and having this thing build dynamically based on the timeline, there's a ton of value there in terms of how we visualize that for different types of learners. I don't think we quite know yet.
I think there's overall this like making knowledge come alive aspect. And, I always think of the scene of Tom Cruise in Minority Report, but like, yeah, what does this look like when you're in AR with story?
Okay, does everybody feel like they've got a good understanding of what concepts are, how they work, how they get built? Who's got questions around any of that? Okay. Cool. Would love for all of you to try testing working with concepts. So try asking questions around concepts, try creating, uploading data to get concepts. I think especially Erica with humane tech stuff, there could be some really interesting things that you find. I would be very curious to see what your experience is with all this new humane tech data and everything that's happening. Try comparing one concept to another by mentioning both together.
Mm-hmm.
I'd also love to get as much of this video out publicly. We talked about some specific customers. Maybe we cut those parts out, but as much of this demo as we can get out in a blog post, I'd love to start to share this around.
Cool. Thank you. Well, you buy a house for a jacuzzi, but this is easier to put away than a jacuzzi, so at least people can hide it if they don't give value. Maybe we should attach some analytics to see how many people had the graph.
It's true.
And we'll do that.